There is a superior class of herbs which have stood the test of time and helped a wide variety of people for centuries. This superior class of herbs rewards the faithful user with a strong constitution, quick mind, resistance to illness, and long life. Astragalus root belongs to this superior class of herbs, known as Hong Qi, or yellow leader in traditional Chinese medicine. Astragalus root is widely used today. How can it help you? Let's find out. Okay, so this is Astragalus root, the oblong root with the power to reboot various organs of the body, and I'll get to all that in just a bit. Astragalus membranaceus is the Latin binomial of the most commonly available astragalus for sale as a medicinal herb on the net and in stores. There are hundreds and hundreds of Astragalus species, so make sure you're getting the correct species if you ever decide to use this someday. This was harvested from an astragalus plant which was probably 4 to 6 years old. The roots do not normally look like this. These are normal round roots which have been smashed under intense pressure to get this flat look. And I bought this astragalus when I visited China, a nice little herb shop in Beijing down the street from the gigantic Apple electronics store. This is actually a species of astragalus from Mongolia, which is also a popular medicinal species of astragalus, but the large majority of what you'll see is labeled Astragalus membranaceus in the United States online. And this is a common form of astragalus that you'll see. These are long roots which have been sliced into pieces. This is that familiar tongue depressor look. And astragalus is one of the world's greatest restorative, rejuvenating, nutritive, nourishing herbs. There are lots of herbs, lots of great herbs in the world, but very few are like astragalus. One of its most popular uses is for the lungs. This root has a moistening effect on the respiratory system, and moistening herbs are very important. The vast majority of herbs are drying. They'll make you urinate, they'll make you sweat, they will dry up stagnant liquid areas of the body where there's liquid trapped, fluid trapped. But moistening herbs are important. It's important to avoid a dry cough. You don't want a dry respiratory system. A dry cough is a sign that sensitive tissues in the respiratory system are most likely inflamed, hot, swollen. You don't have the protection of that thin layer of mucus, which is an antibiotic. It's important. A dry respiratory system will open you up to airborne pathogens. So it's a piece of cake for an airborne pathogen to be inhaled, and then without that mucus layer there, it sets up shop in this unprotected tissue, and it makes things a lot worse for you. When I was in China, the entire eastern half of the country was sick. Everywhere I went, there were people hacking and coughing. I was walking down the street in a major city, and there were just blobs of mucus spat out everywhere on the sidewalks. It was like a game to test your coordination when trying to avoid stepping on lung butter landmines. I was on a plane, and this businessman was sitting behind me, hacking and coughing the entire flight. Unbelievable hacking noises. I really thought that a piece of lung tissue was going to fly out and land on my leg. When we landed, I went into the men's room, and guess who's there? The same guy standing at a urinal, and his back was arched so far as he was hacking and coughing. He was desperate to dislodge this mucus. Horrific, dry hacking sounds filled the entire restroom. It was stunning. My heart went out to this guy. He was miserable, but he had these dry, inflamed respiratory tissues, and without moisture in his respiratory tract, there was nothing to act as a lubrication or a solvent to get this hard mucus out of his body. And I just wish I would have had something with me to give him. But Astragalus could have saved this guy, could have helped him if he did not have a fever and if he was not suffering from some type of acute infection. If he was on the backside of a respiratory issue and not in the beginning stages where you're highly contagious, you've got a fever. But Astragalus could have helped, but he needed some type of moistening herb right away. American ginseng or dendrobium or something. So get to know your moistening herbs. That's the point. Get to know your moistening herbs. They can save you. Solomon seal root, Shatavri, Irish moss, very powerful. It's a great libido herb for men as well. I talk about it in my libido video. Slippery elm, Siberian elm, marshmallow root, pleurisy root, mullein leaf, licorice root, American ginseng, comfrey root, dendrobium. Moistening herbs will be a whole nother video I might do someday. In traditional Chinese medicine, Astragalus is a primary herb for general immune resistance. It will boost the body's antibacterial and antiviral defenses. You can use this made as a tea or tincture to inflict some herbal justice upon these incredibly small invaders that set up shop in our body. Harmful bacteria and viruses that populations need mowed down from time to time. And this is just one herb which can help with this. But you want to use this for chronic conditions, not acute conditions. So again, you don't want to use this when you have a fever. Astragalus is extremely well known and extremely popular as a nutritive qi building herb. It smells sweet. This whole room right now, it smells like Astragalus root. It smells great. It tastes sweet. It's slightly warming. Again, it's moistening, so it's good to take in the winter months as a tea. It's considered a tonic herb, a tonic remedy. So what's a tonic remedy? Well, tonic herbs can be rejuvenating herbs taken during or after an illness, but again, you probably don't want to use Astragalus if you're running a fever. Not a good idea. And tonic herbs can be blended together to make all kinds of different types of herbal formulas. You can take them on a regular basis for general wellness. You can take them over a long period of time, because one of the worst things you can do is just wait until you're sick and then you start making teas and start chugging herbs. I've seen it a million times and I understand. I've been there. You're sick, you're desperate, you just want this thing gone. You want it out of your body. I've talked to people who have, you know, those cleansing kits where there's a bunch of bottles and they last 2 or 3 weeks. You're supposed to use them over a period of 2 or 3 weeks. I've known people who were so sick of being sick that they ordered a kit just like that, and it arrived in the mail, and they opened it up and they just started chugging all the bottles. In 2 days, the whole kit is gone. So you don't wait until you're sick to take herbs. You take them before you get sick. That way you can build yourself up, not just physically, but in many different ways, because herbs like Astragalus root work on many different levels inside the body. Sickness and illness will demoralize you. It will drain you, not just physically, but emotionally and financially as well. So protect yourself. Astragalus root is sometimes mentioned in the same breath as other powerful herbs, powerful adaptogen herbs. Rhodiola root, American ginseng, Panax ginseng, Schizandra berry, cordyceps, licorice root, Moomiyo, Shilajit. It's just a few, but those are good herbs to look into and learn about. But in traditional Chinese medicine, Astragalus root is used for building back up what they would term deficient qi or deficient life force of a person. So let's say you have a person who is going through a long illness. You've got somebody that's recovering from a long, drawn-out battle with an illness. It's just left them wiped out energetically. They have no energy to speak of. This is a depleted person. You look at them, they just look drained of energy. They will have diarrhea. They'll be cold all the time, even in the summer, even in the tropics. They will have a pale complexion. They'll have dark circles under the eyes. They'll have a thin, weak voice. They don't like crowds of people because they don't have the life force. They don't have the energy to deal with being surrounded by a lot of people moving and talking and bumping them. They don't have the life force to correctly process what they eat. That's why they get diarrhea. They don't have the life force to keep them warm. They have trouble sleeping because they don't even have the energy to sleep. So what happens is they lie awake at night when everyone else is sound asleep, the world is quiet, and they're alone. And their brain just spins, processing over and over their situation. Why can't I sleep? Am I ever going to get better? How am I going to pay the bills when I don't have the energy to work? And it's not unusual for this to happen around 3:30 a.m. That's a bad time to be awake. Start thinking very depressing thoughts. But this is a cycle that you must break out of. Astragalus root could come to your rescue here, either alone or mixed with other powerful herbs, which I'll get into some combinations here in a second. But in the view of traditional Chinese medicine, we build up our qi through breathing. So our lungs are important here. And we also build up our qi or maintain our qi through our food choices. So if a person, let's say a person's lungs are weak, they have asthma or hay fever, then a practitioner of Chinese medicine would say your qi is weak. So you would most likely be given astragalus root along with other herbs, perhaps as simple as a 2-part formula. Astragalus root and red ginseng, or the astragalus root could be mixed with 4 to 6 other herbs. You've got, could be red ginseng, cordyceps, mulberry, red sage, ginger root. It just depends on where you're at in that window. What formula would fit you best? What type of heartbeat do you have? There's lots of things that come into consideration. An experienced practitioner knows what to look for. An experienced practitioner can tell 15, 20 different things about you in 30 seconds. The 30 seconds it takes for you to walk up to them, shake their hand, and say hello. And people say, well, how's that possible? That's not possible, Sean. Well, a good practitioner can look at the color of your skin. Is it gray, red, moist from sweat, ruddy, oily, dry? Do you walk favoring one side? Are the whites of your eyes white, or are they some other color? Will this person look you in the eye, or do their eyes hey, how you doing? Nervously dart around the room? When they say hello, is their voice weak or is it booming? What color are the lips? Deep red, pale red? Are the lips cracked? Is the hair oily? Do they walk bent forward? When they shake your hand, is the grip strong? Is the hand shaking? Is their hand cold? Are they grimacing in pain? What kind of noise are they making when they grimace in pain? A good practitioner can tell a lot by whether you sigh loudly or if you try to be brave and hold it in. Do you plop yourself down in the chair in front of them, or do you just like ease yourself down because your knees and your back hurt, they're weak? Well, these are signs of qi deficiency. The mind of the skilled practitioner is quietly cataloging all these clues. They're listening and talking to you. They hear everything you're saying, trust me. But in the background, they're running this program where they're narrowing down what they can do to help you. So, the lungs. So, other herbs that are good for the lungs would be any herb that builds up the adrenals. Eleuthero, ashwagandha, Schizandra berry, nettle seed, nettle leaf, American ginseng, jiaogulan. These are all great herbs for the adrenals. And you would want to avoid steroids, stimulants, and stress, since these will tax the adrenals and just rob you of any forward progress you had any hope of making. What about other lung issues like bronchitis or emphysema? Well, here you would want to build up the collagen and the elastin found in the lungs. The collagen gives a firmness to the lung tissue. but the elastin imparts a flexibility to the lung tissue. So deep in our lungs, we have these alveoli, tiny sacs, tiny air sacs. These tiny air sacs are the final destination in our lungs for the oxygen we inhale. And there's about 600 million of these tiny alveoli, these little air sacs in each lung. And these tiny air sacs, these alveoli, are a critical area of the lungs because this is where oxygen in the air we breathe crosses from the lungs to the pulmonary capillaries. Oxygen molecules in the lungs disperse right through the wall of these tiny alveoli because these alveoli are only one cell thick, extremely delicate. And then the oxygen molecules will hitch a ride on red blood cells, and then the oxygen is distributed throughout the body in places of need. The oxygen molecule will eventually be triggered to release its bond from the red blood cell. Depends on chemicals, temperature of the body, chemical reactions. Now, in this same alveoli, this one cell thick air sac, there is a waste product from cellular metabolism. It's called carbon dioxide. And it leaves the blood, goes the opposite way. It leaves the bloodstream, it leaves the pulmonary capillary. And this waste product disperses the opposite way into the lungs across the one cell thick alveoli. And we exhale this. This is an acidic waste product. And respiration is a primary system in the body for balancing the pH of the blood. Just simple respiration. It's one of three basic systems for the regulation of the pH, our blood pH, tissue pH. So the health of our lungs is very important for many reasons. So here you would want silica and vitamin C. You can go look at my silica video that I made last year to learn more about silica and vitamin C. Silica and vitamin C build up collagen, elastin, chondroitin, but it's the collagen and the elastin that we're focusing on here to keep these tiny alveoli, again, 600 million per lung, to keep them strong but flexible. And this helps all lung tissue. Silica and vitamin C, very important here. If a person goes to a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, they may be diagnosed with what is termed weak spleen qi. They're viewed as not getting the nourishment from their food that they should be. So Astragalus root will be given to this person to fortify or to build up the spleen. It's not the literal spleen. In this case, it's not the literal spleen. It's probably more of a close match to the pancreas or the duodenum. But astragalus is an herb with a powerful effect on the cardiovascular system. It's a tonic herb of great power for the cardiovascular system. If you have shortness of breath, let's say you have to carry something up a flight of steps, it's just heavy enough to require two hands. And a flight of steps, 14, 16 steps. So you get to the top and you have this shortness of breath, this unusual shortness of breath. You haven't run a marathon or anything, you've just climbed a flight of steps. Well, that could very well tie back to the heart. So look into astragalus for this. Hawthorne Berry is good for the heart, night blooming cereus cacti, but get your heart checked out by a medical professional. And night blooming cereus cacti is good for elderly people who are experiencing depression. That's another video. So astragalus is a great herb for the kidneys and the adrenals. Now, this is where ultrafiltration takes place. Not just filtration, but ultrafiltration. The kidneys keep what we need, kick out the rest. These are the living membranes. You can put someone on dialysis, but dialysis is not a living membrane. You can't match the kidneys. By some estimates, 47.5 gallons a day are filtered through these living membranes. Too much water in the blood, kidneys send it to the bladder. The kidneys are constantly filtering waste products, amino acids, glucose, electrolytes, salts. Is the pH of the blood slightly out of balance? Is it too acidic one way or too alkaline the other way? Well, if the blood is too acidic, the kidney will begin excreting acidic hydrogen ions down to the bladder, just get rid of them. Or the kidneys can generate alkaline bicarbonate ions. It's not sodium bicarbonate. That's something different. This is just bicarbonate. It's not Arm & Hammer baking soda. But the whole purpose of this is to make sure that the blood stays between 7.35 and 7.45. And this is another redundant system the body uses for balancing the pH of the blood. There are three basic redundant systems the body uses to regulate the pH of the blood and tissues. So let's talk about this. Because astragalus exerts a powerful influence on the kidneys, you may want to look into it for glomerulonephritis. What is that, glomerulonephritis? Well, the first half of the word mentions the glomeruli. And these are incredibly tiny structures in the kidney. This is where basic filtration takes place, basic filtration of the blood. And the second half of the word is nephritis. So this is pointing towards an inflammation in the kidney. It's got an itis at the end, so it's probably an inflammation like arthritis, tendinitis, bronchitis, bursitis. So this is a very specific area of the kidney we're talking about here. And this is a cutaway view of the kidney. It's been sliced in half lengthwise. And this reddish area here at the top, this is inflammation. This part of the kidney is in trouble. If you don't correct it, then the kidney's ability to filter your blood correctly will slowly degrade. It'll get worse. And what's inflamed is the glomeruli, this structure right here. And these little structures are all through this light colored area. This is called the cortex of the kidney. And this inflammation can be from a bacterial infection, a viral infection, it can be from high blood pressure. There's lots of different reasons. But in this glomerulus, this structure is called a glomerulus, blood comes in one end, goes out the other, and it's pushed through under pressure because our bloodstream is under pressure. If we lose this blood pressure, then our organs start failing. And certain constituents of the blood are allowed to pass through or leak out through tiny holes here in these capillaries. It is an amazing filter. Some things are allowed to pass through, some things are held back at that moment in time. And then the blood leaves this area and it goes on its merry way, and whatever was filtered out will have further actions taken upon it, depending on what the kidney senses the body needs at that moment in time. And part of what was filtered will end up going to the bladder. Some will be reabsorbed. This is a larger, more complete picture. Now, this larger picture of the tiny glomerulus that I previously showed you, here in this area, some of the constituents of the blood are allowed to leak out on purpose. Some are held back. And what is allowed to leak out is captured in this light-colored cup. It's called a Bowman's capsule. And in this section, when the fluid leaks out and it's captured by this capsule, further actions are taken upon it. Reabsorption could occur. The body may decide, yeah, I want some more of that. Let's keep that anyway. So might be amino acids or other goodies that the body reabsorbs. And the kidneys are always vigilant, always making sure that you're in balance. Now here is the mind-boggling aspect of this. There are 1 million of these, 1 million in each kidney. And as you're watching this right now, your kidneys are silently and expertly performing complex filtering tasks. Astragalus root contains polysaccharides, flavonoids, saponins, which may be of great help when you're dealing with glomerulonephritis. I talked about saponins in my Yucca Root video when I was in Mexico. And Yucca Root is another great herb which contains these helpful saponins. And Yucca Root powder is easy to obtain. I suggest getting it in capsules. You can get it online, and you can learn all about that in my Yucca Root video. For scarring of the glomerulosclerosis, you might want to try looking into systemic enzymes for that scarring inside this delicate tissue. The use of astragalus for kidney tissue, kidney issues, glomerulonephritis, and various stages of chronic kidney issues. It's not new. This is well known. However, astragalus is usually blended in with other formulas. Angelica sinensis is one herb. Red sage, again, could be used. Rhubarb, cordyceps mushroom, nettle leaf, nettle seed, very powerful. There are many herbal combinations, and this is no accident. Every system of herbalism in the world, from the Middle East to the rainforests of South America, they all use multi-ingredient formulas, period. And you want the synergy that a multi-ingredient formula gives you. There are many herbs which are incredibly effective by themselves, many. This is one of them. It's undisputed. But when you see a multi-ingredient formula in Ayurvedic medicine, in Chinese medicine, in Unani Tib, Western herbalism, there's a reason. And as far as astragalus helping the kidneys, you have to be very specific when you're looking for research on astragalus by itself helping the kidneys. It's out there, and it does help. And the research papers they're kind of fun to read because of their conclusions. Some of them say, it works, we don't know why, we believe this bears further study. And then other research papers will state quite clearly why they believe astragalus helps. They'll say, hey, this stuff is anti-inflammatory. It helps the tiny, delicate tissues of the glomerulus from degenerating, helps reduce the inflammation, keeps it from falling apart, helps with the filtering functions. It's the flavonoids in astragalus. It's some other antioxidant function, and so on. So if any of this applies to you, you might want to look into the research on astragalus root for kidney issues, chronic kidney issues. Polysaccharides in astragalus stimulate the immune system, and these polysaccharides stimulate white blood cell activity. What are some other good herbs for the immune system? Well, Paul de Arco's one, myrrh, Chinese licorice root, Schizandra berry, seaweeds like dulse, maitake mushroom, chaparral, andrographis, very powerful. Those are just a few. And for building up the blood, astragalus mixed with angelica root, Angelica sinensis. This greatly supports bone marrow health. The formula is you take 5 parts astragalus root, 1 part Angelica sinensis root, you boil them together to make a tea, and then you drink 4 to 6 ounces a few times a day. And this formula goes back to the late 1247. So it's been around for a couple years, and it works. Merck Pharmaceuticals, of all people, introduced Angelica sinensis to the Western world back in 1899. They sold it under the trade name Eumenol. It was a product designed to ease menstrual pain. I had a guy call me years ago. He says, hey, I've been taking this formula. It's got astragalus root and Angelica sinensis. And 6 weeks after taking it, my rheumatoid arthritis went away. So this ties back to the adrenals and the anti-inflammatory action of the 2 herbs, the astragalus and the Angelica sinensis, but also the antiviral and antibacterial action that these herbs can have in the body. And these herbs contributed to his relief. So astragalus and Angelica sinensis for bone marrow. Is there another great herb that builds up the bone marrow? How about the great rainforest herb suma? Okay, Latin name Phaphia paniculata. From South America, it's sometimes called the Brazilian ginseng. It's found in the jungles of Brazil, Ecuador, Panama, Peru. And this is a great herb, Suma, to help repair bone marrow damage. Suma is one of the highest herbal sources of organic germanium, which stimulates the production of bone marrow. Suma also contains pantothenic acid, which feeds the adrenals. I will be releasing a video where you will see this drawing again about the adrenals. I talk about the extreme importance of pantothenic acid for the adrenals in that video. Suma is called Brazilian ginseng. It's not really a true ginseng. There are only two true ginsengs in the world, American and Panax. But when you break down Suma, when you begin to look at the chemical constituents that are in it, you begin to see why it is so popular in South America and worldwide. And pantothenic acid is just a part of that. There are lots of constituents which have a positive influence on the body. Suma is just a great herb to learn about. So Astragalus and the adrenals. Astragalus has a positive effect on the adrenals. That's why it can be helpful in autoimmune disorders. Autoimmunity, you've got poor adrenal function. And what happens is this results in an overproduction of low affinity antibodies, nonspecific antibodies. And they go around attacking friendly tissues, which are minding their own business. And then you're in pain, and then things can get a lot worse. Astragalus can help with asthma and allergies because these can tie back to the adrenals as well. Food allergies. Food allergies is becoming, I see it's becoming worse and worse. There's many reasons for this. That's a whole nother video. But Astragalus could help you because when you feed the adrenals with a pro-adrenal herb, or especially vitamin C, pantothenic acid, then the adrenals begin to produce proper amounts of epinephrine again, adrenaline, which counters histamine and leukotrienes. With a healthy set of adrenals, you're going to have ample corticosteroids to modulate your personal immune response. Your personal immune response. It's tailor-made for you, and it begins to lessen these inflamed areas of the body. I've seen people respond to the combination of vitamin C, pantothenic acid, and a pro-adrenal herb in 48 hours. Astragalus, Panax ginseng, American ginseng, Schizandra berry, Xiaogulan, Licorice root, 48 hours, usually younger people. And these are people who were sleeping 12 to 14 hours a day. And sometimes you got to bring out the big guns. In cases of severe adrenal depletion, I've seen people who were walking zombies because their adrenals were not functioning correctly. They took 60 drops of Korean red ginseng, and within seconds, their entire personality changed. Their complexion changed. They wanted to grab the bottle and drink the entire bottle of Korean red ginseng right now. So, did the Korean red ginseng make its way through the digestive system and into the bloodstream? Was it pumped into the adrenals via the suprarenal adrenal arteries? Did it get pumped in here within seconds? No, that didn't happen. So how did it work so fast? Well, that's a whole other video. But you have someone that is extremely depleted, their body gets a taste of a nourishing adrenal supporting herb. One of the most, if not the most, stimulating adaptogen herb, Korean red ginseng. And they instinctively wanted more right now. And this is a situation where you have to be careful. You need to watch the amount a person takes of a powerful herb like this. They're going to blast off like crazy, and the pendulum swings too far in the opposite direction. But the body hasn't properly healed yet, so they end up getting themselves in trouble again. Astragalus can greatly help when you're dealing with certain illnesses which have cells which rapidly multiply in the body that you don't want rapidly multiplying. Okay, so you would want to drink 6 to 8 ounces of Astragalus tea faithfully every day, multiple times in the day. Okay, and what you do is you take a few of these Astragalus pieces, since this is probably what you're going to see, and you want about an ounce worth. You put it in water, about a quart of water, you bring it to a boil, then you just Let it sit. Reduce heat and let it sit there at high heat, not boiling, but high heat. 30 minutes or more. And when you combine astragalus with cinnamon or ginger, this is a piece of a ginger root here, and this is cinnamon bark I purchased in China, in Guilin, China. Nice little herb shop. The guy was really curious about why I was there. Like, what are you doing in my herb shop? So I started buying herbs, and he didn't care anymore. But it's not unusual in China to see somebody take astragalus and then they'll combine it with either ginger root or cinnamon bark powder, because it boosts the power of the astragalus. You get an enhanced effect from the astragalus when you combine it with ginger root or cinnamon bark. When you have reduced white blood cell counts, astragalus. The polysaccharides in astragalus root, composed mainly of glucose, these polysaccharides, long chain sugar molecules, are anti-inflammatory, antiviral. They help to modulate the immune system, and they act as an antioxidant by stimulating the production of superoxide dismutase. Very important. Go back and check out my video on Rooibos Tea. There's a guy in that video that goes more in depth on superoxide dismutase, and you'll learn a little bit about how these antioxidant herbs like astragalus switch on beneficial genes in the body. So astragalus, good astragalus, will cost you 35 to 80 bucks per pound for the good stuff, and that may seem like a lot, but you want the good stuff because this is a great herb, and if you're going to spend money on it, you might as well get the best that you can afford. This is not an herb to be taken lightly. Astragalus is a very famous herb used for hundreds of years for a reason. It can really help you. So you want to get the good stuff if you're going to try it. So that's a little basic information about astragalus. This video could be 3 hours long talking about all the things that astragalus can do. And all the different formulas you can combine it in, what they can do for human health, for your skeletal system, muscles. So, but always look up the contraindications for any herb you plan on using, and double or triple check anything that I say in any video. Double check and triple check, because when you do this, you get into the habit of double checking and triple checking what anyone has to say, and that's important. You want to make sure for yourself that what someone is saying is true. It's for your own protection. So there you go. That's a little bit about astragalus root. My name is Sean. I am one with nature. Thank you for watching.